All right, welcome back to another episode of Two Point Sports. Today, Oklahoma improved to 4-1, beating Auburn, first SEC game on the road. A lot of things to talk about. We're gonna have opinions on a lot here. I'm sure everyone watching or listening will also have opinions on it. So make sure to hit the comment section. Let us know what you thought about that football game, what you really liked, didn't like, all that stuff, because we're gonna get to it here in a little bit. Make sure to like, subscribe, turn on the notification bell, follow us, and all links down below in the description. Uh, all right, made that one as seamless as possible. So, as I said earlier, Oklahoma improved to 4-1, beating Auburn in their first road game. A little bit of Sooner magic. Some people didn't want to call it Sooner magic on Twitter for some reason. I think there's a little bit of Sooner magic that was sprinkled in there for Oklahoma to win that game. Brandon, you watched from kickoff to when the clock hit zeros, didn't miss a minute. What did you think about the team as a whole, um, and just the outcome of the game for Oklahoma?
I mean, I think the offense still has a lot of issues. Obviously, I think it was very sloppy. They had 11 first downs all game. I think three of which came on the very first drive when Hawkins scored the 48-yard touchdown. Um, then it went really stagnant for the remainder of the first half. Really, it was bad. Then they put it together in the third for a field goal drive, and then they scored 17. Or they scored 10 points in the fourth. But when the team needed it, they were there. Yeah, JJ Hester made a huge play on a deep ball after they got stuffed on a fourth down and 10 on the drive before. You know what? Whenever they got stuffed on that 4th and 10 from out midfield, it really feels like you're down 11 with 11 minutes to go. They just got the ball at midfield after a failed 4th and 10. It really felt it felt bad. It felt like this might be over for us. The defense buckled down again, got off the field, then the offense makes that big play, scores a touchdown. With the long ball to Hester, then I think Barnes runs it in untouched. They failed the conversion, and then the defense does, the rest is history on that Kip Lewis pick-6. And how about R. Mason Thomas again? With the game on the line, that's when Oklahoma had already taken the lead. When the game's on the line, he sacks people. That's what he does. He had two yesterday. I think Spears Jennings had one coming off a safety blitz. Ballsy call from Zach Alley, but I love it. I mean, he came through untouched and hit the shit out of Thorne or whatever his name is. Whenever Oklahoma had to have it, they had it, and the defense made play after play. Offense was there when you had to have it. I think we knew this game was going to be ugly. Down 5 receivers, down Taylor Tatum. It's a game that if we would have won 6-0, I'd have been fine with 6-3, whatever. Ended up being a really exciting football game, and most importantly, the Sooners did win, and we're 4-1 with 2 weeks now until our next game. So hopefully we get some guys back.
Yeah, ugly game is definitely a good way of putting it, and that it was for Oklahoma. The offense is still the most concerning. Yesterday, you and I basically just bickered back and forth because I kept saying this offense is garbage, and you agreed, but you also mentioned that the refs were
I
getting in
think
the
refs.
way, which whatever. We don't have to get into all of that. My takeaway though is regardless of what the refs messed up or got right, whatever that may be, this offense still can't overcome those penalties, which you're gonna need to do if you're gonna win big games against much better opponents. Oklahoma as an offense is just not very good. And yes, you can definitely point back to not having your top 5 wide receivers. I'm not going to pretend like that's not a thing that's going to affect this squad. But they also haven't had really any of those receivers outside of Deion Burks all season. You had Nick Anderson for like 3 snaps, Andrell for a half of a game, maybe, if I remember correctly. But outside of that, they've been missing. Jalil Farouk missed the second half of the first game with his broken foot, and Jaden Gibson hasn't been available all season, and he won't be all season. So there's not really an excuse to how poorly this offense is executing because you had the guys that are really playing right now, or getting all the snaps available to you the entire time. So either you decided as coaches, right? They might, I don't know what it is, if they're deciding to not prepare them, like not focus on them because they're hoping to get some of that top talent back, or is it really just they're that young and they're not processing quickly enough? There's probably a mix of both. I'm sure it's somewhere in the middle where the coaches are just hoping they get the top talent back, and in the film room, it might not be as pointed to the younger um, team members of the team that are going to be taking the field that weekend. But then the younger members of the team also need to just step up a little bit. Maybe I think uh, JJ Hester, he was finally able to make good out of his opportunities, and I'm sure he's probably going to get more playing time now, assuming that those five receivers will not be coming back anytime soon. I just at this point I doubt that Nick Anderson comes back and if he does, it might be like really rotational where he's limited. Andrew Anthony, we'll see, but JJ Hester is probably going to be the number two guy next to Deion Burks, assuming he can be back for Texas, along with Jack Wez and Zion Raggins. Kearney played a little bit. Um, well, they've got to figure something out though with the wide receivers. If we can make 2, 3 of those explosive plays per game, the run game will open up because right now, I'm sure you're noticing it, Brandon. But yesterday when I was watching the game with a friend, like, and we've talked about it before on the show, the defenses that Oklahoma is facing really aren't doing anything crazy, and our offense is bailing them out more often than not because all they have to do is cover between the line of scrimmage and first down because our quarterback or the offensive line or the wide receivers, something on the offense isn't being executed properly, and there's nothing going past 10 yards, seemingly.
That's why
And
the game felt over yesterday. When you get stuffed in that 4th and 10, and you have absolutely no. Prior to that point, we had no deep game. We had nothing beyond the 10-yard routes, the 10-yard. I mean, that was it. And the defense can sit on that all game. And then, for a whole half, you do nothing. For a third quarter, you get a field goal. And I mean, it's so one-dimensional at times that the defense has. It's really we make it so easy on opposing defenses. And then, JJ Hester took the top off, and that all of a sudden you can get a touchdown on that, and that was pretty cool. I think they also took a shot to the end zone and got pass interference and couldn't punch that in, which was, I mean, that's tough. I think they did score on a 3rd and goal, but the referees like to do what referees do and bring back good shit. But you have to find a way to score there. Left some chances on the field. Obviously, the Hester play was big and ended up leading to a touchdown. I think a positive note for the offense is the offensive line actually looked pretty solid yesterday. I think for a majority of the game, the offensive line was actually there. We were able to get a little bit of a running game going, mostly Hawkins, obviously, but I think Barnes had 61 yards. The yards per carry average wasn't great. I think he had like 3.5 yards a carry, but I mean, 3.5 yards a carry every play will win every game. So that's not bad, I guess. We were able to limit Auburn to 3.3, but it's a game I was watching yesterday, and it almost felt like Jackson Arnold might have been better in that game because it was the first game all season, seemingly, that the offensive line decided to. Again, I think they actually protected pretty decent on a lot of those dropbacks, and I think that's a game that Arnold would look great in. But I mean, Hawk did. I think Hawk did just enough. He had 160 yards passing, 65 on the ground or something. It was fun.
yeah, and maybe I don't know. Maybe you disagree. I think that I do think that to an extent that line played better, but Mike Hawkins made them look a little better than maybe Jackson Arnold would have because Jackson's seems like his first instinct through the first 4 games wasn't take off. Not that he did it, but it wasn't as quickly. Sometimes it was even frustrating to watch Michael Hawkins because it was sometimes kind of quick that he would take off, and then it was very inconsistent when he did decide to take off. But the offensive line definitely played better. There were times where in the first 4 games there would be 3-man rushes, and somehow 2 of those guys would get through the line. This time, 3-man rushes. There was what was supposed to happen, and the quarterback actually had time. So it's just a matter of at that point scheming up the routes correctly because I mean, Hawkins can make some of those insane throws, and I think that is one of those things where it is a freshman that you have to remember that it's a freshman back there, and that was his first start of his career. It really just kind of thrown in there randomly in the Tennessee game, and he was able to put a little bit of a spark with that offense. So as this season progresses, assuming that he stays healthy and he remains as the QB1, I think the offense will look better. I still think there's a lot of question marks though because of maybe the play calling. It was slightly better, but it's also because we basically got rid of any RPO. Like that was my biggest gripe through the first four games. That maybe you saw one, and I maybe I just don't remember it because I was getting kind of frustrated there in the second half. But I don't remember seeing any RPOs, which is fantastic. It doesn't have to be this fancy offensive scheme. Just pass, run, play action, go back to the normal stuff, the vanilla offense, whatever works. Move the ball down the field and score the ball.
No, I agree, man. I think there was definitely a lot less RPOs, if any at all. I can't remember one either, just off the top of my head, which was fun. I still think Seth Luttrell is not the answer. That guy, for whatever reason, man, and I get the injuries. Like it's a thing. When you have five receivers out, that's definitely a thing that's going to hinder your offense. It's going to hinder your play calling ability to a degree. Having no Taylor Tatum is going to hinder you a little bit, but he just seems so unprepared every week. You have Zach Alley out there who's constantly dialing up whatever he needs to on defense to get off the field, whether it's blitzing, whether it's dropping back. I mean, he figures a way throughout the game to get off the field. What's working, what's not working. He makes adjustments. He seems to always be there. And then you have Luttrell, who we go large portions of every game now without doing anything offensively. And I don't know if it's, again, I don't know if it's just having five receivers out. I don't know if it's being so young, being on the road at a very tough place to play, or just I really can't figure out the reason for it. But I mean, he just seems so unprepared, and there's no real adjustments. If I feel like he has a game plan, if you will, and he sticks to it regardless. If it's working or not, that is what we're going to do the entire game. And sometimes I think that might work. Sometimes it's I don't get it. I think Luttrell is still very much a problem. And then I get it. It sucks for him to have all these injuries, but you've got to find a way to be more consistent offensively. You can't go huge stretches without getting any points. It's gonna get you beat against the better teams that we play.
Yeah, and really the only play that sticks out that was just like, what the hell are you doing here, man? Was the third down play after Bauer Sharp's long catch got called back from offensive pass interference.
3rd and 20.
3rd and 21, and your play call is a screen to the guy that just ran 60 yards. He's probably gassed. If you're going to keep him on the field, at least just make his duty to block, or really just make him some sort of decoy so that you can get a long play down the field. Like, at least try to go for it, because really you didn't do anything. Like, you'd rather see an attempt to get the first down and throw a 15, 20-yard pass and hope that the receiver can make a couple moves to make the first down than that, because you didn't advance the ball. Like, if anything, did they lose a yard, and then it's not like Luke Elzinga, a yard to that guy doesn't matter. He's elite for a punter, but give the man a chance.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. It's a lot of times it's tough to watch this offense, and a lot of it, I think, is the play calling. You're just sitting there like, what the fuck are we doing? At times, and I'm not saying we could, because we definitely couldn't, but it really feels like, us sitting on the couch can call a better offensive playbook sometimes.
Yeah, no, it's definitely it definitely can be infuriating. And you know what I was actually thinking about, kind of slightly off topic, is I don't know what happened, in the background, or in the whatever back room, with the whole Lebby situation towards the end of the season. Obviously a big thing, and a goal for most every coach is becoming a head football coach at a big time program. And Mississippi State might not be the biggest of programs, but that's not a bad place to start your head coaching career, especially when right now the bar is set so low. Right? Objectively, the bar really is set so low for success. Like, they don't expect him to go out there and make a bowl game this year, win a few games, recruit, show that you can recruit, and like that there's promise in the future, and you're probably going to have a job there for the next 4 or 5 years, as long as you progressively get better. Kind of like South Carolina for Shane Beamer. Like, I don't think he's on the hot seat at all. And like, he hasn't had the greatest of starts there for a head coach when it comes to win-loss. But if he would have if it wasn't a situation where, the whole Art Briles thing earlier in the season last year, if that had all played into it and he was maybe not renewed, his contract wasn't going to get renewed, so he just went ahead, went full on to like his head coaching interviews and just got the first one or got the best one that he could. If something could have been different and he would have stuck around for maybe one more year, there's going to be an SEC job out there for him to take, probably Florida, where just as much money, if not more, still an SEC team. Like, would that have made a difference to Oklahoma? Probably a ton. Because as much as
that'd be hard. I think,
as
I mean,
yeah,
Brent talked about. I think if Jeff Lebby stays, I mean, Dylan Gabriel probably ultimately ends up staying too, and then we'd be panicking because we thought we'd lose Jackson Arnold. And the crazy thing about it is, um, at the end of the day, Oklahoma's going to end up losing Dylan Gabriel. Obviously, that's already the thing, and they're going to end up losing Jackson Arnold anyway. It's
I don't even know if Dylan Gabriel sticks around, but even if he didn't, let's just say he didn't, like that still played out, but Lebby stayed. Like the one of the thing that a lot of quarterbacks always talk about, especially at the professional level, is when they get a new offensive coordinators. Like it's not so much the plays because basically it's when you're in a similar offense schematically, the plays are always pretty similar from coach to coach. It's the terminology that they use. It's not the same because they obviously need to make it a little bit different so that it's not just, oh, we know what they're running because we literally just heard our offense calls the exact same thing, right? So if Seth Luttrell just has the most complicated terminology compared to what Levy does, and maybe he simplifies it a ton, then that might help. That might have helped Jackson Arnold out his first year. Um, obviously there's a lot of what ifs, but I just wanted to think that's something that hopefully he wasn't pushed out. Everyone likes to talk about Dylan Gabriel got forced out of this program. It doesn't seem like that's the case when you listen to what Dylan said about his decision to go to Oregon and what Brent Venables said about how that played out from his perspective. If Dylan leaves, I think Jeff Lebby, in hindsight, obviously, like we were always frustrated here on this show as well with his uh, bullshit jet sweeps and not being able to get first downs in critical situations sometimes. But that is much better than what we're currently experiencing. So the grass isn't always greener, kind of thing.
yeah, we're definitely missing old Levy poo, but I mean, I do think going forward the rest of the season, especially with the bye now, we should get some guys back. Hawkins is only going to he should only get better with more experience and more time under his belt. So um, I do think that our offense is going to just continue to slowly improve. I mean, that's not saying a whole lot because at the time, again, we go on 20-minute stretches of nothing. So, I mean, if we can give it like a one score per quarter, I mean that's pretty sick. It doesn't have to be a touchdown every time. Give me 2 touchdowns and 2 field goals, I think, and then let the defense get another touchdown or force one deep and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean I think the offense will show signs of improvement, especially getting guys back, just getting more time, getting rest. But I think we're definitely missing Levy pretty hard.
Definitely. Now, we've talked a lot about the doom of this football team, which has been the offense, obviously. Let's talk about what ended up winning this football game for Oklahoma, the defense. Starting out the game, they had a really good first two drives, getting 2 3 and outs in a row. And then something happened where
The second drive
this
was goal line stand.
goal line stand, yes, you're right. But I mean, they basically started the game off as good as you can start this. Started off, they almost forced a turnover. They were kind of playing tip drill, just weren't able to secure the ball. Kobe McKenzie tried to dive for it. But then for the Auburn team that we expected, really, they kept the ball safe up until that pick 6 at the end of the game. That ended up costing them the game and giving it to Oklahoma. I don't know what happened. There was a lot of like Peyton Thorne. Maybe he was just on a different planet, or the safeties weren't playing. The play calling wasn't there. Whatever the case is, I think Eli Bowen. I'd like to see him get a lot more playing time. He might be smaller in stature, but he's figuring out how to lock people down. I get it that I'm going to be one of the first people to say because people will always say, well, our corners get beat all the time. Corner isn't going to play perfect man coverage every single time. Like that doesn't exist in the NFL, in any level of football. You just don't lock people down. People will catch the ball
Mhm.
sometimes, but it's making sure you don't get beat for big plays consistently. I think that's what we're seeing a little bit from Kenai Walker and Des Malone right now. They might be bigger, but I don't know what it is. Maybe there's a miscommunication with them and the safeties, or they're not flipping their hips fast enough. They're expecting something that's not happening. I'm not sure, but it seemed like every time there was a big play, it was those two guys being on the wrong side of that big play. And I think they're good players, but maybe not in man situations. Maybe they're better zone coverage guys because they have made plays for Oklahoma. But like Des Malone wasn't turning his head every time that a ball was coming his way. It seemed like, and maybe I'm wrong, but like the
No,
big plays he was getting beat on, he would just like turn your head. Like for the one where the first big play uh, that Auburn got off was the one where the wide receiver had to just like stop and basically like land on his ass to grab the ball because it was thrown so far behind. If Des turns his head, he's still on his feet. He might be able to make a play on that ball, but he took too long and the ball got past him before he could make the jump.
yeah, no, that happened to him twice. On one of the touchdowns too, he was actually in perfect position and just didn't turn around for whatever reason. And Peyton Thorne, I think, threw the best ball of his life. That somehow just got right to his wide receiver there, right over to Des Malone. But he's in a perfect position and just doesn't turn around and doesn't make a play on that ball there. It doesn't even, I don't know. It was whatever. He's there, he just didn't make a play on it. And yeah, Kenai Walker though, he's a guy that he seems really good in the short to intermediate game, but I feel like anytime somebody goes deep on him, he's getting cooked. We saw him get cooked against Tennessee by Brew McCoy and the long touchdown. And we saw obviously a couple times in that Auburn game yesterday. He's just I don't know what it is with him, but yeah, I think he's a guy that we need to, I don't know, maybe make more of a rotational type piece, type player, and maybe roll with Eli Bowen. I think every time Eli Bowen gets on the field, man, he looks good. He looks just like his brother. I think that those Bowen kids can just straight up play. Maybe you got to rotate Bowen and Kenai, but Kenai being out there all the time, he's proven to get beat often on deep balls. Yeah.
Yeah. And someone we haven't really seen much is Makari Vickers. Not sure why, but he was good last year. Hopefully he gets a little bit more run as the season goes on. Because now we're down a defensive back because he's now a wide receiver in Jacoby Johnson. It's weird that we didn't get to see him yesterday in the game, but
After the Texas game, gotta be.
he's got to be part of the game plan for the Texas game. Defensive, I think the linebackers played well as usual. There was definitely like a stretch of game there where they forgot how to tackle for a second, especially when they're. We talked about it on the pregame, on the preview. Excuse me. Stop the run, and then there was a stretch of the game there where we just couldn't get that guy down for. And yes, he's good. Like we talked about, he's a good running back, but there were times he would just bounce off three different tackles before we could finally get him down.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. That's for the most part, those guys played well, but yeah, that did happen and that sucks. I mean, but if you look at Auburn's box where they only averaged 3.3 yards a carry, so I mean, again, for the most part, they were there. Games on the line, they're always there. It almost seems to me as if like Kip Lewis and Kobe McKenzie, I think for big stretches of the games played better than Danny Stutzman. And that's, I mean, Stutz is really good, obviously, but I mean, I think those younger backers, man, can straight up play. They're so fun to watch. They're guys that, I think we're really excited about going forward because they're only going to keep getting better. Those dudes are nasty.
Sorry, I don't think we saw much of Lewis Carter. I remember looking up in the third quarter and not really remembering him being on the field very much, if at all.
It was a lot of Kobe and obviously Kip Lewis with the play of the game was really cool. Defensive line is doing defensive line thing. I think Kalen Woolard had his best game sooner. He wasn't necessarily living in the backfield, but he had a couple plays where he batted the ball down at the line of scrimmage. I thought he was really active in the quick pass game for Oklahoma's defense. R. Mason Thomas doing R. Mason Thomas things. That dude, I mean, for some reason, the game's on the line. He's like, "Fuck it, I'll sack him 1,000 times." Spears Jennings continues to look really, really, really good. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ups on that defense.
Yeah, that defense is just going to get better because if you think about it, you're going to lose. You're for sure going to lose next year, Danny Stutzman and Billy Bowman. They're out of eligibility. But like you said, the younger backers and Kobe uh, and Kip look great. Lewis Carter's look great every time he steps on the field. Samuel Masigo looked good. Now that he has to start at the cheated position, um, and then you've got guys behind them that will get better. And I'm sure I feel like they're going to need to hit the transfer portal for that position probably next season, just because they haven't recruited a high volume of linebackers in the last couple of cycles. Or in the really last two cycles in 2024, 2025, you don't have very many linebackers there. Just James Nesta, if I remember correctly, was a lone linebacker in the 24 class. So probably I wouldn't be surprised if they try to go after linebacker there. Defensive line, Ethan Downs, you'll lose. I think Ken Woolard's a Redford senior
I
as
think
well.
Terry too.
DeJoun Terry, but you've got Jaden Jackson. I think potentially Dominic Williams might have an extra year of eligibility, so if he decides to stick around,
Yeah.
that'd be nice. You just have David Stone, Nigel Smith. You got all those young guys that you brought in to just keep that rotation in the defensive line and the defense better. And on the back end, RSJ, if he sticks around, because now he is eligible to go to the draft. I don't know if he would, but if he, let's just say he doesn't, he sticks around. Now his partner in crime on the other side would be full-time Peyton Bowen. He's not switching back and forth between him and Billy Bowman. Like that would be, I think that defense would be just as good
Yeah.
as what we're seeing so far this season. Yeah, maybe start off with some mistakes, but by the time the meat of the season starts, you'd hope that they're catching their stride and finding a rhythm early on in games.
Yeah, no, they should be fine. There's a lot of young DBs, man, that I think are showing a lot of potential. I think Jaden Hardy's got in the games a couple times this season. Look good. Eli Bowen's obviously looking really good. I like when Mike Boganowski gets in the game. He tries to kill somebody every snap, which is he only plays like 3 or 4 snaps a game, it seems like, but every time he's on the field, he's trying to take somebody's head off, which I think is
Yeah.
he's a lot of fun to watch. I mean, there was a play yesterday where the guy was essentially tackled. It was the play was over, and he came flying in and tried to kill him. And I was like, all right, Boganowski, I think the play was pretty much over, but I appreciate the hustle out there and trying to lay an extra hit on him. But yeah, I think defensively going forward into the future, it's going to be really, really solid. Again, I think Kobe and Lewis Carter and Kip Lewis at times look better than Danny Stutzman, and that's saying a lot because Stutz is a really good football player. So there's a lot to be excited about. There's a lot to be excited about this season. And that was a fun game.
4-1. That's all you need right now.
Mm-hmm.
You move on to the next game. Texas, Red River rivalry shootout, whatever you want to call it, is the next game in 2 weeks. I'm sure both teams have guys that are going to be coming back when yours will probably be back. Both teams do have a bye week this week, so everyone gets to be rested up for that game. It's going to be exciting. It's always a game where, as everyone here watching knows, you just throw the records out of it. Like that doesn't matter. This game should be competitive from beginning to end. It's just a matter of can Oklahoma pull it off. I think if Oklahoma can pull that one off and not believe that their shit doesn't stink, kind of a little bit like they did last year. I think there was a little bit of that and it ended up kind of costing Oklahoma there in the second half of the season. If they can lock in post Texas, assuming there's a win, there's a chance this team can go get into the playoffs and make some noise. I'm not going to go as far as winning it all, but they can at least get to a position where they're like that Alabama game is going to mean a lot, especially after Alabama's win versus Georgia. I mean, Ole Miss doesn't look unbeatable. They lost to Kentucky, South Carolina. I don't know. I don't think they played yesterday. It might have been their bye week. I may be wrong there, but like their quarterback got hurt in their last game last week. So if he isn't able to come back, like that does hurt their offense a lot. And I like our chances, our defense versus that offense. It just if our offense can figure it out versus their defensive line. Oklahoma's got games where as we're looking at the season and how it's progressing, as long as we do what this team does what it needs to do, they have a chance at winning every single one of them. I think Texas and Alabama are the two that you look at like those could be the ones they drop and be 9-3 at the end of the season. But you wouldn't really be surprised if if we were going back to the beginning of the season. We said Oklahoma's 9-3 and they lose to Tennessee, Texas, and Alabama. No one would be like, yeah, that doesn't make sense. Like, why would you lose to those two teams? I think 99% of the people would be like, yeah, that
Yeah.
checks out.
Especially with how the season's panned out just with how injured they've been. I think if you go 9-3 with how beat up this team is, and those are the 3 games you drop, I think we're all very okay with that going into next season. And 9-3, you have an outside shot at a playoff. I think with those 3 losses in it, especially in a 12-team format. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean it's going to be fun.
Yeah, if strength of schedule is taken into account, like Nick Saban pushes for, then Oklahoma's got a shot, or just win one. If you win one, I think that you're in. Win
Yeah.
one of those three, you're in. Go 10-2, figure it out later. All right, I think that's it for this video. Make sure to hit the comment section. Let us know what you thought about the Auburn game, what you're looking forward to, which I think for both of us is just a rest week so that this team can get healthy for the Texas game. And then make sure to subscribe, like the video, turn on the notification bell so you know when we post new videos. Try to get them out 3 times a week. Might be a little lighter this week because of the bye week, but that's why you got to turn on the notification bell so that you know if we post 2 or 3 times this week. And then follow us in all the links down below in the description, social media, podcast formats. We appreciate you all for joining us. We'll see you next time.